Hello, and welcome to Your Sparkly Brand. This is the podcast designed to inspire and empower female entrepreneurs. On this podcast, we share valuable how-to content, discuss common mindset challenges, and interview kick-ass women business owners about their journeys. In a world that tries to pit females together, Your Sparkly Brand is celebrating successful women and nurturing the next generation so that we can lift each other up. I'm Megan Gersh, here with my co-host, Lauren Tassi. Hi, Lauren.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. On today's episode, we're talking all about branding. It's in the name of our podcast. It's what we both do for a living. And we just feel like this is the great second episode and a way to sort of make sure we're all on the same page when we know what we're talking about when we say the word branding. So this is your crash course. This is Branding 101. From our perspective, branding is kind of a little bit of a subjective thing. So this is what we think about branding. I guess we'll get into it.
Let's do it.
So Meg, what is branding? Tell me what branding means to you. And then maybe if it's different, I'll jump in and give my own thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. So branding to me is really the feeling or emotion that the audience has toward a business. I think that there's a really big misconception that when you say, quote unquote, branding to someone, their mind might automatically go to, oh, this is just a logo. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Branding consists of many, many different components, all kind of compiled together. And ultimately, it's going to be how the customer feels about the brand itself.
Yeah. One of the things, I definitely didn't come up with this, but I've heard and read this somewhere, is your brand is what people say or think about you when you're not in the room.
Yes.
And it's really about more of that like overall feeling and perspective. It's that sort of awareness part of marketing, not the direct response part of marketing.
Yeah, I love that quote so much. I absolutely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about your brand identity. The brand identity is basically a suite of visual components that the business puts together and consistently uses across their channels in order to communicate their message. This could include their logo, the logo usage, their different font systems, any textures, patterns, photography, iconography, the mission statement, the core values of the company, as well as social media guidelines.
So since Meg really has the visual background and the visual expertise, she's great at the copy stuff too, but we're going to she'll be our like visual side of branding, and I'll be a little bit more the messaging copy side of branding. And I think what I see a lot, especially I think people that come to me and that are, ready to work with a copywriter and get their brand voice set up, they already have the visual side. Like that seems to be the first step in branding when companies are just sort of getting going, as they go, well, we need a logo, we need, colors, we need all of this. And then sort of the second phase of it is the brand voice. And that's something I specialize in, is helping companies develop a bold brand voice. And to me, there's three elements to a brand voice. The first one is your word choice. So it's the difference between starting your emails with, hey babe, and hello there. It's just, what words does your company choose? And that's sort of, you make those decisions based on who your customers are, who your brand archetype, and sort of how you want to position your brand. Is your brand the guru, or is she the best friend? It's looking at that, and that helps to inform these other choices down the road. So after word choice, the next big thing is tone. And again, that's very much a part of a brand archetype. Like, are you always positive? Are you always a cheerleader? Are you, you want to leave your customers feeling like inspired after they read an Instagram post? Or is it, a different, a totally different tone where it's just like, we're very minimal. We're very, we don't use unnecessary words and that kind of thing. And then cadence is another one. Are we using, short, choppy sentences? Are we using, these like long, poetic phrases? And every brand is going to have a different combination of those three elements in their brand voice.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point too, because there are certain brands that I follow that will speak in slang or have certain words that they use in their vocabulary. So they use those kinds of terms just to speak to that ideal customer in their language.
All right. So we've sort of covered what branding is. Now, why is it important?
There are so many different benefits to having a great branding strategy. And most importantly, it helps you to attract your ideal customers, as well as repel the people that you kind of don't want in your circle.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I'm sure you get this with your clients too, but my clients are always so hesitant whenever I talk about polarization or repelling, just because it's hard to, when you're the business owner, be like, well, no, I want everyone to buy my stuff, but pretty much there's no way your stuff is for everyone. And so the way to get the people that are meant to be your customers, the people that are going to sing your praises and talk about you everywhere you go, you have to pull them in and then repel the people that aren't right, that aren't going to be happy, that are going to want refunds or, just not appreciate what you do. So I'm sure that's something you deal with too, like just trying that we have to have a balance here and not try and be everything for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's that quote that goes something like, if you try to speak to everyone, you'll wound up speaking to no one. And it couldn't be more true. I think additionally, when you have a strong branding strategy, it helps to build trust with your audience. So basically, this sends a visual message to your audience when they keep seeing you show up in this time and time again with the same visual identity, with the same tone and messaging, that you're serious as a business, that you are immersed in your niche and what you're talking about. You are a credible source.
Yeah, trust is such a big one, especially, if you're like selling products and you're using Facebook ads or something and you're trying to send cold traffic and cold leads to a page to buy. If all of a sudden they hit that page and there's something that feels off, right? Like it could just be like the wrong colors or like something looks weird and like those they have those like badges for like payment security. Sometimes those look weird, and that's like the first thing that's gonna make people go, no way, I'm not giving you my credit card. Trust is so important, and people, I think, kind of forget about that along the way.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually reading this article yesterday that mentioned a study where they basically found that in 0.05 seconds, someone basically will make a snap judgment about your website. So that's how much time you have to make a good impression. So is that person going to stay on the website or are they going to bounce? That's 0.05 seconds, which is like crazy.
That's half of a half second.
Yeah.
So good luck. But yeah, exactly. It's those things that you don't realize can be doing you harm when they don't work right. But when they work right, it just makes the whole customer journey and the sales funnel sort of work smoothly.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the thing about design is like when it's good, you don't even notice it.
Yes.
But when it's not good, you always notice it. You don't have to be a designer to understand like what bad design looks like.
I think you can say the same thing when it comes to copy and messaging as well. As you can tell when it's this brand you love and they've been, you follow that, they're one of your favorite things to follow on Instagram. And then all of a sudden, like the tone changes, like they started to have somebody else write their copy, or it's just like, it doesn't feel right. You might not even be able to like say it out loud or pinpoint it, but it's just like something's off and you're not sure what happened.
Branding also really helps businesses to establish perceived value with their audience. So I always like to give the example of, think about how you perceive Tesla as a brand versus Toyota. There's probably a brand of those two that sticks out to you as kind of the more upscale of the two. Additionally, branding really helps businesses to create brand recognition. So when you start to see the same company show up with the same colors, the same fonts over and over in your feed, you start to recognize that brand. Obviously, there might be a color that comes to mind when you think of Coca-Cola. What is it? It's red, right? Like that's because over the years, they've built up their brand recognition around that core color.
Yeah, the color thing I was already thinking about. Veuve Clicquot. I went to the last time I was traveling and I was in Paris. We went to the vineyard and like the champagne house where they make Veuve Clicquot, and that shade of orange is just everywhere. And they do it so beautifully. Like it's on the uplighting that goes up the wall. And I don't know if you can patent a color or whatever you can do, but that they own that color. Like that is Veuve Clicquot orange. And just to now sometimes I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, that's their color, So if you can own a color, then you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Several brands actually own their colors, which is like very kind of awesome to me as a designer, just because it's like, whoa, like no one else in the industry can use that color like ever on anything.
So then we understand what branding is. We know why it's important. how do we do it? Right. That's the, sounds great. How do we do it?
So you definitely have a couple options when it comes to getting your branding in place. Obviously, there's always the cheapest option of doing it yourself. With this may come several challenges. Obviously, you'll want to do a bit of research around your competitors, as well as kind of do a deep dive into what it means to be your brand. Like, what is your business? What do you stand for? All of those kinds of internal questions that you need to ask yourself.
Yeah, I think one other thing to think about if you're going the DIY route is to not forget that like you are not your customer. Sometimes you might be close to being your customer, but you in fact are not the customer. So if all pink everything isn't going to work for your customers, but you love pink and like everything has to be pink, you might want to rethink that and just really try and get into the mind of your customer before you sit down and start, really like laying out your brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that I say a lot to my clients too, is like, you have to really take a step back and remove yourself from your quote unquote like favorites, just because your favorite things might not resonate with your customers. So,
and then obviously the next step, if you don't want to do it yourself, or maybe you've tried and you've, read a million blog posts and spent hours on YouTube and you're just still feeling lost. There's so many people out there that love to do this kind of thing and would love to help you. Meg and I are two of those people.
Shameless plug there.
Yeah.
By the way,
this is what we do. And the other thing is just having an outsider's perspective can be so helpful with this. Even if you can't, hire somebody to help you, just get a friend and talk it out and just have somebody who's way more objective and an outsider in your business than you are, because once you start to sort of get that new perspective, you see things totally differently. I won't speak to your process, Meg, but for my process, if you come to me and you go, Lauren, we love our color palettes, we love our logo, we love everything in the visual side of our brand, but we need help with our brand voice and our copy. What I'll do is we'll obviously go through a deep dive strategy call. We'll talk about like what works, what doesn't work, talk about your client, your ideal customers. And then I'll put together a brand voice style guide for you, which is basically an entire document that you or anyone on your team at any point can refer to help you write copy and content for your business. It actually, beyond just helping you stay consistent, helping you match your brand voice, it actually makes writing easier because you have this list of words that you can go to and maybe go, okay, let me start my blog post with this, or let me look at this idea and write something on Instagram about this, because it's this resource you can turn to, and you'll have that forever. So whether or not I help you with your website, I help you with stuff down the road, a brand voice style guide is definitely something that can be useful for any business once the number one person is no longer the only one writing. So once you go on to having a team of 2 members, I really highly suggest a brand voice guide if other people are doing the writing.
Absolutely. And yeah, on the visual side of that, I always put together brand style guides for my clients for a few different reasons, just because number one, this is super helpful for any brand to have kind of in general. It's basically going to be the brand Bible that you refer to anytime you make any kind of visual asset for the company. So I'm talking about banners, printed materials, digital assets, social media content, any kind of email banners, everything digital, as well as everything printed as well. And number two, if new team members come onto your team, this is a super helpful asset to be able to give to them. Or if you're outsourcing, this can be helpful as well, just to be able to give them this brand guide so that they have a full picture of the company's brand fonts, all of the styles, the colors, how photography is used in coordination with text, any social media guidelines that you have in place, et cetera.
Yeah, it's just a tool that's going to help make your entire process easier. And the more you can grow, the easier it will be to bring on more people to help you out.
For sure.
And so we've got this great style guide. We've got everything in place. How are we going to use it?
So from the digital side, you're definitely going to want to put it on all of your digital assets, including your social media, your website, as well as any digital ads that you might be running from the company.
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is everywhere. Right? Where do you not put your branding? I mean,
yeah, I kind of look at branding as essentially like different touch points that you have with your audience, right? Like think of every opportunity that you have to communicate with your customers as another opportunity to reinforce that brand.
Yeah, showing up at, every step along the way consistently and with that same voice, with that same, palette, really it builds that trust, and you will not get a sale until you have established trust with your customer.
So let's talk about some final tips for really nailing your branding.
Yeah, I want to start with knowing your target audience, but it's also more than knowing your target audience. It's actually doing some research and not assuming things about your target audience. I see that sometimes where people go, well, I think they'd like this. And that can really lead you down the wrong path if you're just assuming things and you're not talking to people. And you don't need to, pay $10,000 to send a survey to 1 million people. It's just maybe talking to the people in your circle and your network who would be your ideal customers. If you sell sparkly kimonos, right? Talk to your friends who would wear a sparkly kimono and say, oh, hey, what are you looking for? What colors do you like the best? And, would you buy this for this kind of thing? And just sort of doing that first step of the research will pay off so much further down the end, instead of having made all these assumptions about your audience and then sort of sitting here with something that's not selling because you didn't, put in the legwork.
I think the other side to that too is taking a look at your competitors. It's so easy to spy on your competitors. And I say, like, people say, quote unquote, like, spy on your competitors, like, oh, it's like this sneaky weird thing, but actually it can be super helpful and informative. Even going to their social media accounts and seeing what type of content they're posting, how are they showing up for their audience, how are they speaking to their audience, like what colors are they using, all of those components. Try to take note of those things and do this with a few different of your competitors to see if you can find any similarities. The other big thing that I wanted to note is that consistency in branding is super key. One thing that I suggest to all of my clients is to get templates in place, especially for the visual assets, because when you have templates in place for content creation, it's going to make your process so much easier and faster. And on top of that, you're going to have that consistent look over and over when you show up with your posts.
So what kind of template? Are you talking just like social media specifically? Are there templates you can use outside of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So social media templates, email templates, even like format type things. Like, let's say, so I do a lot of content creation on TikTok, and there are a lot of creators on there that have the same format for their videos in every single video. So establishing what that format is going to be, and you say like, okay, like here's shot one, this is what we're going to do. Then you pan over to this, like just establishing that can be really helpful just because it creates that consistency for the brand.
Yeah, I love that. And it's more work up front that will pay off down the end too, because you're not, trying to figure it out every time you're trying to make something.
So if you've made it this far, you have made it to the end of Branding 101. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on social media at Your Sparkly Brand.
And if you have a sparkly brand or you have any suggestions for female entrepreneurs who are slaying it and want to be on our podcast, send us an email at hello@yoursparklybrand.com.
And until next time, stay sparkly.
Bye.